Version 43 brought a little bit of balance to version 42, and Profiteer was one of those cards that was changed. It got a wee bit of a buff, and I've been really interested to see if that changed my previous statements about it.
Patreon allows creators to offer their fans a way of supporting them and what they do. With flexible and painless payment options, anyone can support their creator for as little as $1 a month. If you would like to help me do what I love, check out the link in the video description to learn more.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Math Paragon video. I am Sylphin. We are taking a look at Profiteer. Hopefully you guys enjoy the nice little footage I have here going on in the background. Just some of my better moments here in the gorgeous version 43. So guys, Profiteer, what's the TLDR? You just gain bonus gold for enemy minion kills, and if you don't die, it can be a lot. Like, you know, anywhere from 7 to 11,000 gold if you get 157, 220 creep score. It looks really quite good. Now, it takes 40 minion kills to pay off. 7-minute mark is average payoff point if you don't die. If you do die in the laning phase, it's about 15 minutes when you pay it off. Most games end around 150 to 200 creep score, and dying twice, guys, just undeniably very much likely, both in the early game and in the mid game. So if you die twice, which again is very likely, you can basically accrue about 2,000 to 3,000 profit gold by around the 24 or 26 minute mark, or 7 to 8k profit gold by the 34 or 36. If you die once, that changes to 4,000 to 5,000 profit gold and 9,000 to 10,000 profit gold, and by the respective times. And if you don't die, again, that's 7 to 8 or 12 to 13,000 gold by the 24 to 26 or 34 to 36. Now that is a lot, but guys, remember, you're gonna die. You really are very much likely. So once the early game aggression dies down then, and farming increases, which we did notice if you stay with me for the more in-depth look, Profiteer may be a good way to snowball in the mid game. Sure, maybe in the early mid game, but basically in the mid game. And Profiteer might help farming after the first or second damage card to help coming online in the early game as a carry, getting guard, piercers, stuff like that. Definitely, that's what I recommend. So guys, what is the more in-depth analysis? What is the mathematical proofs and observations that I have done to help support that? Well, here it is. So guys, if you don't know, Profiteer is a 2,400 gold chaos card that is combustible, meaning if you die, you lose it. You die, you lose it, 2,400 gold down the drain. But it does give you a pretty cool passive where you gain 60 bonus gold for enemy minion kills. Killing enemy minions, you last hitting them gets you 60 bonus gold. Not bad. Now, if we take a look at the analysis, because it has a 2,400 gold cost, and of course, you can just lose it, that does mean that there is a payoff point to this card. You spend gold, you got to make that gold back to pay it off, and that's simply 2,400 divided by 60 is 40 minion kills. So 40 minion kills, and you've paid it off. Little hint into something we're going to talk about later. Total creep score is about 150 to 200 by the late game. So you're spending almost basically a quarter, almost a third, a quarter to a fifth of your total creep score just paying it off. I'll just leave that out there. Now, profit gold, this means that if we want to add on top of that investment point, we need to make 1,000 profit gold. We need 57 minion kills to gain 1,000 profit gold, plus paying off, obviously, the card. Now, if we want 2,000 profit gold, 73 minion kills, etc., etc., 10,000 profit gold, 2,207 minion kills, 13,257, etc., etc., as you can see. Now, if you just want to know how much to make that without paying it off, basically 1,000 gold is 16.7 repeating minion kills. You can't get 0.7 of a minion kill, so you have to upgrade. You have to round that up to 17. So there you go. Yeah, guys, 1,000 gold every 17 minion kills. Again, maybe whether you want to consider the payoff point, I guess is up to you. Now, what if we do something different? Now, what I did was I tied creep score to game time. I took a look at some master level or very top diamond just carry players, some of the best players in the world, really, and took a look at their creep score and kind of averaged it out over the many games that I looked up. So again, remember, there is that payoff point. So we're going to tie that. So creep score at the 2-minute mark is 9. Creep score 60 at the 10-minute mark, 118 at the 18-minute mark, 192 at the 28-minute mark, etc., etc. And then what I did was I divided the creep score by the game time, basically giving us creep score per minute, giving us a rate at which these players were farming. So what I did then was I took that rate and I applied it to how much time does it take to pay off Profiteer if you were to get it at that point, and then how long would it take to gain certain amounts of profit gold. So if you say you wanted to at the 10-minute mark get Profiteer on, it would take 6.7 minutes to pay off. It would take 9.4 minutes to gain 1,000 gold, 1,202 to get 2,000 gold, 15 minutes to get 3,000 gold, etc., etc. Now, because the rate increases the longer the game goes on, this isn't necessarily the best way to, it's not necessarily entirely accurate, but it does give you a good idea. Hey, it takes, 5, 6 to 10, 11 minutes to get 2,000 profit gold. That's a significant amount of time here in version 43. When games are ending, let's face it, at the 24, 26 minute mark a lot of the time, sometimes 30. The rarity now is when it's supposed to end at the 34, 36 minute mark. Now, I did hint before that we were going to talk about deaths in the TLDR, and this is where we're going to go through some scenarios. What if in this scenario, in this match, you do not die? You're amazing. You have amazing support. You have an amazing team. I don't know. You do not die. Very rare. Probably not going to happen, let's face it. Game time of 2 minutes. You just cannot get it. You simply don't have enough gold. You haven't farmed enough to get it. And right around the 4-minute mark, the 3-4-minute mark, you can get Profiteer. You go straight back to base, you get it. And then you head back out. You're in the hole. You're in the hole a little bit. 1,740 if you want to, when we include the actual cost and then the actual profit, etc., etc. It takes about the 9-minute mark to actually get a profit. 10-minute mark, we're profiting 660 gold, etc., etc. By the 14-minute mark, you're 2 attribute points ahead. 16-minute mark, you're at the 3 attribute points. 4, 5. Every 2 minutes, basically, you get an extra attribute point when you take into consideration these master carries farm rates. Again, all basically 7 attribute points here at the 24-minute mark. So, hey, by the 24, 26-minute mark, most games are ending nowadays. 7 to almost 8 attribute points extra over the enemy team. That's pretty darn good. By the 34, 36-minute mark, so that's now 12 to 13 attribute points ahead of the enemy. Or that's a Hellfire engine. That's almost 2 Hellfire engines. That's a Hellfire engine and a Dune Winds, really, if you just want to go all in because you have this much gold. Like, awesome, right? That's pretty darn good. What about some other scenarios? Because that's not very realistic. Honestly, you're gonna die. Even if bots, because the bots are actually kind of good right now. What if you die during the laning phase? Around the 8-minute mark, probably a little bit earlier, the 6-8-minute mark, right when the junglers are kind of freed up from the first 3 to 5 minutes. Well, you're in the hole again. 8-minute marks comes around, 2,400 gold in the hole. Finally, you get a profit here by the 15-minute mark, and then you can basically just see that you're down 2,400 gold from the first scenario. 24, 26-minute mark, 4.5 to 5 attribute points, and 34 to 36, you're 9 to 10. Basically, you're just two attribute points behind. Now, if you die in the mid game, we get a little wee bit of profit here in from the 10 to 14 minute mark, you get a few attribute points ahead. But then at the 15 minute mark, you got to pay for it again. 16, and then you get a little bit of farm, and etc. It's the same thing. You're just changing when that deficit, when you got to pay for it again. So there you go. Now, the most likely scenario, and probably you're going to die more than twice. Carries are high priority targets. You usually end up dying 2, 3, 4 times. Just be honest. What if we die at the 8 and 18 minute mark? Well, then we really start to see a difference here by the 24, 26 minute mark. You're 2 to only 3 attribute points ahead. And up here, you're 7 to 8 attribute points ahead by the 34, 36. Now, 2 to 3 attribute points, that's much less of an advantage. But maybe, again, that is almost your Dune wins, perhaps. That is a small, relatively significant part of maybe a Hellfire engine, or, you know, those last little bit of attribute points to get that tier 7 agility gem or something like that. Who knows? So with all that said, what are some statements we can make? Basically, it takes 40 minion kills to pay off. You know, that's a fairly significant amount. Especially if there's a high harass team with some really good assassins. You know, taking a quarter to a fifth of your, or a third sometimes, to a fifth of your total creep score just to pay off a card, that's gonna be tough in some scenarios. Now, it takes about the 7 minute mark average to pay off Profiteer if you don't die in the early game. 15 minute mark if you do die. 15 minute mark, a lot of the game has gone by at this point. So, I don't know. That really affects your early game progression, really affects your early game cards, which is important. As a carry, you hit like a wet noodle in the early game. So getting that first guard piercer, the nitro boost, etc., is, you know what, really, really important. Most games end around the 150 to 200 creep score. That's almost being generous nowadays for non-master player matches. So even that is a bit generous, but that is, I would say, fair to say. Dying twice, though, is incredibly likely. I'm gonna bet my YouTube career, no, I'm just kidding, that you are going to die twice or more. Once, at least in the early game, and definitely in the mid game. As your more rotations and stuff like that, it's going to happen. So with that said, if you die twice, which seems very likely, one can accrue about 2 to 3k profit gold by the 24, 26 minute mark, or 7 to 8k profit gold by the 34 to 36 minute mark. Hey, you know what? That doesn't sound half bad. It really honestly doesn't sound half bad, especially if the match is a little bit, you know, close. It's a close match, and it's going to go into the 30s in terms of the game time. That's going to start becoming a real significant advantage even for a carry. But if you die once, I mean, that's still a really good game. One can accrue around 4 to 5k profit gold to 9 to 10 by the 34 or 36. That is really significant. So you are taking a risk, but even if you do die twice, I think that's a fair advantage. Definitely a fair advantage if you want to go for it. But if you don't die, then yes, you're absolutely going to get tremendous value from this. On my previous Profiteer video, I had people saying, hey, I'm always ahead, why aren't you recommending it? Well, yes, you said in your comments that you didn't die. Of course it's going to give you a lot because you didn't die and you didn't have to spend 5k gold to get the card, you know, so of course it's going to give you a good advantage if you don't die. But face it, you're going to die once, you're going to die twice, probably thrice or more. At that point, it's not worth it. Once the early game aggression dies down, though, and farming increases, which we did see in the creep score rate, Profiteer may be a good way to snowball in mid-game. Honestly, if you want to just kind of, you know, by the time that by the tier 1s are down, so you're a little bit more safe rotating, you know, in your jungle, or just the more rotations do happen, it may be a good way to snowball in the mid-game. And Profiteer might help farming after the first or second damage card, again to help with coming online. That's really, really important, getting that early game damage cards, as that makes you effective in farming and in engagements and just kind of taking down towers and stuff like that. So I don't honestly think that on average, in your average match, you should probably get Profiteer in the early game. Go ahead if you want to be risky, and you have a phase or something, and she's like really babysitting you. Go ahead, but you know what? In the average game, I think honestly, Profiteer is kind of a late early game, early mid game pickup to help you snowball at that point. So there you guys go. What do you guys think of Profiteer? Yes, it is better than before, and I think it was definitely a nice buff. It was about 10% increased in effectiveness, and that's a fairly good amount. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think of Profiteer. Do you guys think it's better than I'm kind of letting it on? Do you think on average you're gonna die more than twice in a game and then it's just simply just not worth getting at all? Do you think it's worth the risk? What do you think? Let me know down below.
Patreon allows creators to offer their fans a way of supporting them and what they do. With flexible and painless payment options, anyone can support their creator for as little as $1 a month. If you would like to help me do what I love, check out the link in the video description to learn more.
Ladies and gentlemen, please like this video if you like it, dislike it, share it with the community, and of course, guys, subscribe. If you guys like this content or simply found it useful, please subscribe so I can do it for you in the future. I have a ton, an absolute ton. I'm looking at my content schedule. It's filled for the month of October. So please subscribe. A lot of useful content coming out. And of course, guys, stay optimistic and positive.